So then we are back with more understandings from the time of the Second Tabernacle services, where we find in the Aramaic English translation of the word. This translation comes from the original manuscripts of the prophets of the Israelic lineage. So then we can understand the time of the end. As per Yirmiyahu the prophet, we find a layer of understanding related with the spring feast, autumn feast, and also the returning of the cities of the Messiah laid waste from many centuries. So then it's very valid during this time of the restoration period, mentioning of the time of the holy feasts, the holy mikras or rehearsals, from then Leviticus the 23rd chapter. When Shaliach Shaul mentioned regarding then the shadow prophetic events of the instructions or the Torah, it is related with those feasts, but not the feasts themselves. For instance, spring and then autumn. But then the significance of the times and the seasons coming from then Leviticus the 23rd chapter. The spring feast, it is from the first verse until the 21st verse. Then the 22nd verse of the 23rd chapter relates with Ruth, or then Gentiles, then granted presence on the land of Israel, then indicated by the 2,000 years granted by the Messiah when he spent with the Samaritans, 2 Yom creation days indicating the time of the Gentiles. And then from the 23rd verse through the 44th comes the autumn feast. So then, at this moment we are then understanding the influence of a couple of nations. Because firstly, the Messiah then he came and he completed the spring feast. Then came his 1,000 years of his kingship, and he was king when he was born. Then in 1009, as we understand very precisely, was the first time where the tomb was destroyed. The world made a declaration and the cities of the Messiah were laid waste as per then Yirmiyahu the 61st chapter. But then the cities are returning. Then it started 1,000 years of deceit. From 1009 to 2009 was 1,000 years of deceit subdivided into beasts, explained then in Apocalypse or then Revelation or Galah. The first beast obviously refers or making a reference of then Great Britain, 800 years granted, and then 200 years then granted to America or United States, and ended in 2009. So per the instructions of God Himself, the time of the restoration had started in 2010. So truly we are obviously nearly 40 years behind schedule of the holy instructions. So let's understand the importance of the change of the political and economical status of the world. Obviously, the USD or the monetary system of United States must retrieve and give space for China. China is the new power trade of the world, and they know it. They are acquainted with it. But then comes a transitional time where then during the time of Great Britain had taken some time then for Great Britain to retrieve and giving way then for the Americans. At this time it is already taken 36 months plus, where then America or United States is already showing signs of a weak economy, weak USD, giving way then to China. It's already predicted 29 more months and then the USD will be broken, because the United States can't no longer maintain the validity of the USD. So then for these, obviously we must then understand what Daniel as a tradesperson, he was a person of trade. So then when we read the 11th chapter of Daniel, we are reading a Gentile understanding of the flow of the events related with the time of the restoration period, mostly making reference of Gentile politics and economics, also related with the military. So as we understand, not only the USD must retrieve, but the entire United States military forces also must retrieve and come back to their own country. This truly is the deal, because the information regarding then the holy instructions, it states very plainly, there is then the Kingdom of the North is then Soviet Union, and it was reinstituted in May of this year. Kingdom of the South is Africa, and Kingdom of the East is China. These are the designers. Because of the time of the seat has ended, the 200 years roughly granted United States was then ended. It's expired. United States no longer holds a legal position or the status regarding then the world's trade and the military advancement, because it was given the military responsibility to the Northern Kingdom, and then the trade was given to China. Obviously then the South Kingdom is then Africa, comes then tabernacling on the land of Kush, and then the most important piece of land in Africa, DRC, with lots of riches exclusively for the usage of China. Obviously, yet Congo is fighting against invaders, fighting against these countries related with 1,000 years of deceit, but they no longer hold the legal requirements from the holy instructions, so then they must be then removed from the country, so then the system of China can be then final, very final, a moment of the Chinese system then being implemented in the world. So then, for these, we must also understand then what goes on with the South America, Central America, North America, and also the South Pacific. The South Pacific was very aware of the system coming from the Pacific, because shortly a few months ago, the Pacific was humming with the information coming from the shortwave radio stations, informing the entire Pacific of the intent of China, and they were always positive. Later on, the United States became more aware of the system of the Chinese system, the system of China, and then they began to come against it. It was very much then in March, then the United States and Japan and then Australia, they went then to China, amongst other countries, and they decided to go against China. Japan's plan did not work. Then the Australian plan did not work either. United States plan did not work either. And because it didn't work, the United States is asking for more money. These will increase the USD, enslaving the nations once again. But these, we find in a problem, because the United States no longer holds the legal rights of the trade's leadership, because ended in 2010. Thus then, the system of the Socialist Party started then in the 60s must return and make sure United States then gets out of the way. That's why then Mr. Castro from Cuba, he was able to hold for so long, yet the system of the Socialist Party of China must be then obviously combined with the Soviet Union, and then Cuba, and then the Labor Party of Brazil. So then, as we understand the BRICS system then, regarding then the many aspects of trade and also security, we understand in September comes the G20 visit in the Soviet Union. There are very few objectives at the moment, and these objectives are then very precisely growth through quality jobs and investment. It's the first objective. The second is growth through trust and transparency. And the third is growth through, obviously, transparent regulation. So then, these are the objectives for September. The initiation of the system of the BRICS. The United States has no choice other than retrieving. They must retrieve their people, they must retrieve their military, and give away for the new system of China and the Soviet Union as per instructions of Daniel 11. So then the world can experience peace for a time. But the time is shortening Because as we go forward with this new system, we observe the United States asking for more money, we observe the USD increasing its value, however, it's not backed up by gold anymore. So then the system started then in the 60s, from the time of Cuba and the Soviet Union, and the Labor Party must then be revived. It is absolutely a must. So then let's understand then what these will bring. It shows then the kingdom of the north going towards the kingdom of the south, and then what does it mean truly, this section of the Holy Instructions? It's very simple. Daniel, as a tradesperson, he saw more than 2,500 years ago that there was then a place beyond the rivers of Ethiopia, the southern area, below then or south of Cush, where then lots of riches would be involved with the new system. Thus then you understand Yirmiyahu chapter 1:8, woe to the land of beyond the rivers of Ethiopia. It is DRC, because of the numerous riches in minerals. So then these should be used exclusively for China and its partners. So then, since we know this section is related with the system of China, it is related with the system of the Soviet Union, then we understand the work of Che Guevara also when he was there in the 60s. Extremely important, because his work must be finished. So then when we read Daniel the 11th chapter, there are two sections of the Soviet Union. There is the former and the later. We understand the former as the Soviet Union, when it was existent, then was dormant. Some people say it was dismantled or then destroyed. No, it was simply dormant. Then comes the later status, higher than the first, because of the relationship with China and the power of the Labor Party, including Congo, including Cuba, including Brazil. Then these powers must unify themselves against the United States and drive them out of the world system so the United States can rebuild itself. Then China comes with a new system, and then the Soviet Union, in combination with the military of China, provides then security for the world as they do the new system of trade. These must become real and vivid and up to date. So then, let's understand what this means. This means a new understanding of the trade via online systems. When Daniel the prophet mentioned the 12th chapter of Daniel, he mentioned regarding the 1,000 years of deceit. At the end of the 1,000 years of deceit, as we understand, was subdivided by a couple of sections. The first beast of Revelation 13 makes mention of Great Britain, gave 800 years of leadership of the world's trade. The second beast came from the earth, was given then obviously 200 years. Those times are gone. These times are truly gone. So then China is truly the system where then Daniel mentioned. And afterwards, because of knowledge of trade via online would be great for the purposes of trade. Because Daniel was a tradesperson. And he is indicating then what Ezekiel the 37th chapter states. Then the stick of authority of trade, Ishmaelites, and then the system of tabernacling given to the Israelites. So then when we understand these sections, then in a final moment we understand China leads the world's market. But then the unification of China with the Soviet Union, with Cuba, with DRC, where Che Guevara started, of the former status of Soviet Union, then is joined up with Mexico and Brazil, making the entire Central America and South America with a single mind. Then the United States must retrieve, because they do not have enough economy for the leadership, and not only because of this, because their time has expired. So then, let's try to understand from what section of the instructions, then we can absolutely pinpoint precisely the precision of the holy instructions so the world can understand. Won't be a system of socialism where people are going to be under the control 24/7. It is a system of socialism protecting capitalism from the imperialists of the United States. So then, if you are familiar with the history, you understand Cuba many decades ago was under the leadership of Fulgencio Batista. He was a scoundrel of the worst kind. He was a drug dealer. He made a resort out of Cuba on benefit of the Americans. He had then the nerve of saying the Cubans should produce sugar and shut up. So then it became a resort of scoundrels, but then Mr. Castro came and changed the scenario. But then Mr. Castro did understand they had to have a socialism understanding of protection of capitalism. And this is what's coming. Nations can live the way they want, but their system of trade must be protected by a socialism protecting these nations from the United States and its system absolutely bankrupt. Please stay tuned. Much more coming up.